Full blind, no fucking teeth.
All right, we are live, kind of, on the
We're fully live.
Strength and Philosophy podcast number 5, talking about mentality. This podcast is sponsored by me, because I pay for this shit.
This is true.
Okay, so today we're going to just hop right in here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the mentality of the athlete. And you always hear the terms. And I know our old friend Ross Boucher, strength and conditioning coach at Kent State,
Loved it.
hated the term mental toughness. So we're going to kind of hint around some mental toughness or the mentality of an athlete and talk about some of the confusion.
The muscle confusion?
No, some of the confusion about people that think they're elite or that want to be elite in sport and they're not, or maybe their actions don't match up.
Or maybe people that are, but they just don't realize that.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's the opposite.
We have a couple of examples here that we'll kind of work through, and this topic is pretty relevant, right? Because right now we're in like the quick fix pill version of society, right? So if you're a little down or a little depressed, you go to the doctor, they give you a pill, and it makes you just feel happy, right? And what happens is you never have to actually work through your thoughts, your feelings, or your emotions. And what this is getting at is that carries over into all aspects of your life, of your training, of your competitiveness, because we know based on our experience and like the greats that have come before us, if you don't enjoy the process and you're not passionate about the process, you're never going to achieve the end result that you desire, which for all intents and purposes of today's talk is being a champion. And that process is where you really work through things, and working through things develops you into the person or the character that you want to become. In weightlifting, it's always been said that weightlifting is not a character building sport, it's a character revealing sport. And I think that's a pretty good way to, kind of jump off.
Right. It's really tough, right? Like nowadays to like have somebody like where they foster that like self-esteem, and they foster that character in such an exposed environment, right? And I think like some of our members that already have that walking in, maybe from like life experience or just like other sort of experiences, right? They don't like have an issue with that. But I think like people that are in their 20s, people that are in their teens, maybe even 30s nowadays, right? That's something that's a lot harder to, like sort of like have just walking in the door. So it's something that we have to focus on, we have to develop.
Right.
And, we've talked about our levels program within the past, couple podcasts. And, like a big part of it is we have, like a system, and like the goal of that system is to put somebody in the process so they can go through that process. But like we need to evaluate, like their technique, their training consistency, their total, their maximal strength. But one thing we didn't touch on last time was like their mentality.
Sure. And
sort of their like mental sort of maturity with training. Because we have a lot of people that are, ex-college athletes, for example, or maybe sort of like high school athletes, and they have like raw physical characteristics that we look to develop. And they have, like the training mentality to be a basketball player or like a high school football player or maybe even a college football player, but they may not have the training mentality to be a weightlifter.
Right. Or be an Olympian, right?
Right.
Or be a world team.
Right. Which
different.
Well, right. So like, and they're going to argue that like, oh, I know how to be an athlete. And I agree, but I also disagree because this is an entirely different sport and it doesn't carry over 100%. And that's something that like they may not realize walking in the door.
Sure. And it's hard to, if you come from a team sport, there's a lot more de-emphasis on you versus if you came from a sport that's mono, throws, for example, shot put, discus, hammer, track events.
Dance.
Okay, dance. Yeah, that's true. Dance. Wrestling, like things like that, where you're out there and it's just you. You can't say, well, I didn't perform well because tight end Timmy missed his block and, the quarterback got sacked or whatever. And so you have to start coming to this.
Out, Dan.
Right. You have to start coming to the realization that you're in control of kind of your training where you want to go. And one thing that we're always asking our athletes about is, are your actions matching your goals, or are you just paying lip service to it? Because a lot of people come in, they're like, I want to be a national champion weightlifter.
I want to break an American record.
Exactly. Or maybe their goals, I want to make an Olympic team, but we know it's a series of steps. So they want to make an international team first, break an American record, then hopefully make it to the Olympics, right? Some sort of scale like that. And they'll come in and they'll ask that, they have all these things done for them, right?
Right.
So will you write me a program? And keep it, and I say this, like, we're happy to support every athlete.
Love it.
But if you come in and you say, write me a 2-day program, and we go through and you're like, okay, you're going to train, 10 sessions a week, right? And after week 1, you've only done 4 sessions.
Right.
Well,
there's no point.
Exactly. And not only that, and the program's shit,
right,
because I anticipated on you being here 10 times. So maybe your 4 sessions, you only showed up on the active recovery days, or maybe you only showed up on the max out days, or whatever. You're only going to get one aspect of training.
Right. And that's not a complete picture. And that is not a process.
Absolutely not. And if you want to be, it's talking specifically about like the Olympic type sports, where it's weightlifting. We talk a lot about rowing because of Dan's involvement in rowing, wrestling, gymnastics, things like that. You have to ask yourself, what's my nutrition like? What's my sleep like? What's my social life like? What is my life stress about? And one thing that I've noticed that a lot of people can do that work in Olympic type sports is they can set a terminal goal, right? So they're like, all right, I'm going to try to make the 2020 Olympics. And at the end, after the 2020 Olympics, I'm done with my sport. I'll be aged out or whatever, or I'll be done trying to be an Olympian.
Right. You'll reach your goal. You'll be good.
Exactly. So they can put everything on hold mentally, and they can dial in their training. They can dial in their nutrition. They can sacrifice a job that would have them paying financially well. Like, it's well documented that like Lowe's and Home Depot, a lot of Olympic athletes work there, right? Because they give them jobs to support their Olympic dreams. And then at the end of that quad, the athlete goes back to like a realization of where they're at in the sport. Specifically weightlifting, we talk about it being a lifelong sport, and that doesn't mean you have an equal intensity for lifelong, right? So you might have this block where you focus on making the Olympics. You sacrifice family time, jobs, money. You eat, sleep, train. Like, that's your life because that's your goal. You're not going to maintain that until you're 75. I don't think we would want you to, right? You're missing out. You're missing out on a lot of aspects of life. But the goal is to achieve that goal, have that help, your character, help with your development, and then you transition into another role in the sport. Maybe you lift casually, you do local meets, you do some national meets, you coach, you give back. Right. You go back to being an engineer or a lawyer and making your money.
Right. You go do your thing. And like there are some people that we have that probably like look at it as a lifelong sport and they don't really want to give up anything, and that's absolutely okay.
Yeah.
And their expectation of what they get out of weightlifting is, come in and they do it for their health, like more so, or they just do it as like part of a challenge, right, to themselves, right? They're a type A person. They like to be driven, and they like to, gain, they want to hit a certain total. But if they don't hit that total, like, their world is not ruined.
Exactly.
Like, when they have a job, they have a family. Like, when they go home, they eat dinner, and they take care of life's really important things.
Yep.
And then weightlifting is really just secondary.
Absolutely. And
that's fine. And their performance meets their expectations, and also their actions. For the most part, those are probably a little bit easier to fulfill, but people are going to struggle with them. Even though they don't have, dreams of lifting like huge weights.
I think that our best example of this, and I share it with our lifters a lot, they're not confused about where they're at in the process, right? No. We have a guy, I'll give him a plug here. He's a strength and conditioning coach at Vanderbilt now. He was training here with us before he took that job, and Josh Jones, and he was a collegiate athlete. He played football at Indiana State. one of the most humble, hardworking, just generally good dudes you've ever met. He had a wife and 2 kids, and his goal was to compete at a national meet. Not win, not medal. It was to compete.
Just go.
I want to make the qualifying standard. I want to go. I want to experience it. And anything that happens after that is icing on the cake. And he said, I'm willing to sacrifice from 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. 5 days a week.
Right.
That's the time that you have to work with me. Let's achieve that goal. And damn it, he did it. And when he was done, he was like, thank you. I really wanted to achieve that goal. I'm going to move on and pursue other things. Right. And it was the coolest, coach-athlete transition. It's like, Dan, you helped me achieve my goal. I got what I wanted out of this sport of weightlifting. Now I'm going to go back to, he still trains. Right. And the dude looks like the Hulk, right?
Right. Looks great.
Still trains, has, another kid now, and coaches, works full-time, and he's kind of checked that box.
Right.
And there's no confusion on what he knows.
Right.
He's not an elite weightlifter.
Right.
He went to nationals, checked the box, moved on. And this brings me to my next point. It's like you see athletes hopping around from coach to coach, right? Like they have to leave a coach or a gym because it's like this bad thing. The environment's changed, or there's a toxic person, or there's this or that. Really what happened is like they either had a false expectation of what their capabilities were, what they could ultimately achieve, and they can't come to grips with accepting that's what it was, right? Sometimes people, have to leave and they go on and they do better. And I think a good example is that, to be honest, I talked to Chad about this multiple times, Kristen Pope. I didn't think that switching gyms, I thought that was not the right move for her at the time. She ended up at Juggernaut. And I told Chad this, and damn, it worked out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does. Yeah, she's doing a ton better. She's hitting numbers she's never hit. So sometimes it does work out. We don't want to say that that's not a thing, but you see this, we always refer to it as the Instagram culture, right? Where you're trying to hop to the next and biggest and best thing, right, instead of just staying deeply engaged in your process. Yeah. And when you love the process and you enjoy the process, that's when you can get everything you want out of the sport. And when I say get everything you want out of the sport, that doesn't necessarily mean a trophy. Right,
it's true. You can accomplish your goals without winning a trophy.
Absolutely does. 100%.
I think one thing with Instagram, I had this thought the other day, just sort of walking around, was that people that see somebody on Instagram, Klokoff's probably one of the best examples, right? Like the man's achieved so much in the sport, does basically crazy shit now.
Yeah.
And you hop on Instagram and you see him doing whatever the lift of the day is, right? Probably the most insane thing. And you see him lift these huge weights. But, he's old enough to where you don't necessarily see him from 8 to 15. Right? Maybe 8 to 20. Right? You probably see old videos that pop up.
Oh.
Of worlds, on a VHS tape, right? Of, him at the 98, youth worlds or whatever, right? Or so it's really interesting when you hop on there and a 15-year-old kid might look at him and say, okay, he's near 30, mm-hmm, but he only sees what he's doing now, mm-hmm, and you don't see the process.
Right,
and for us, for example, I didn't have a camcorder as a kid. You had to be rich, in order to have a camcorder, or your parents.
Park boys didn't have camcorders,
right?
then.
Or your parents really cared, right? There was no flip phone. Right? It's the cellular phone plugged into the vehicle, right? That was it. So these moments of the process, not only the highlights, you never saw those. And I'm 30, right? You're 34 now, getting old, right? It's for the first maybe 15, 16 years, we never had these videos, except for maybe the one, right? Of
for sure.
The rich kid's parents who had the camcorder, got you on the highlight tape. Maybe.
I suggest anybody, I found this, I posted one time, we have a Lift Lab private group, and the caption was, even Klokoff sucked.
Yeah.
And it was Klokoff, one of his first weightlifting meets, and he was young, and his technique and everything, it was
awful.
It was what you expect from a beginner, right?
It was like,
so when you come into the gym and you've trained here for 6 months, hell, maybe you've trained here for a year, and you're not, snatching the moon, and you're like, why am I not getting better? Maybe I should go to another club. No, you're just in the middle of the process. Right. Like we're getting you where you want to be. And to your point about not seeing what he did for the first 10 years of his training, I worked with a girl this week, and she was following a training program that was for a world team member. And it doesn't make any sense to me, because if you're on the world team, like, you're pretty advanced. And if you're not on the world team, you probably have some catching up to do.
Maybe you need to fix something.
Maybe you need to dial a few things in. Maybe you need like a different stimulus. Maybe like your needs are totally different because you don't have that volume. But so what I think the thing that I wanted to hit at with this podcast was the confusion of the athlete, like the ones that think they're elite, but then they don't, and kind of like how we're trying to fight that, right? So we talked about the last couple of podcasts, our level system. And one thing that we've done, like, we're always trying to up our game. Like, we're always trying to like dial it in. And that's a process that's going to continue, hopefully, till I die, because, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? If you're stagnant, it's death. Like, I'm sure there's some clever quote in there somehow.
Yeah, we'll have to think of it. We'll have to dub that over.
Yeah, so put that in the show notes. The level 3s, which is our most advanced lifters, they now have a system where they have to check in with me after every training session. So they have our camera guy, coach / spreadsheet master, Brian, after every 3 weeks, takes all this data that they're manually recording, and it enters in their body weight, their percentage of lifts in certain ranges, and that's how I'm monitoring the total training load for the block. We run
pretty simple math, by the way.
Very, very easy. Like, and it doesn't need to be complex. But
there's no real app.
For example, if you're like, all right, I'm working with an athlete, and the goal is to go down a weight class. All right, and you track your body weight every single day, and you're like, I'm going to be a world champion in the weight class below the one I'm in now, and we're tracking your weight, and it's like the yodeler on The Price is Right, and it's just going up. Actions, words. It ain't magic.
No.
Right? And that's very simple tracking. And as the coach, you have a problem. Like, this is where you piss people off. You're like, you just confront them because, as we always say, facts aren't insults. Right? And your weight is trending up. You said you wanted it to trend down. What are we doing to fix this problem? And that's an uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes we piss people off and whatever. I get it. Yeah. But that's part of it. That's holding them accountable to what their goal is.
But I mean, it's necessary, right? It's like you don't do anybody any favors when you sugarcoat like that situation.
Absolutely not.
It's like they're not going to meet their goal. You're not going to achieve like what you want with that athlete. Right. Nobody wins when you say, okay, it's okay, because this is not like the facts are like not matching up.
Absolutely. That's how it goes. And you can. Like, same thing. I ask them to like track the lifts, so they have to track the volume of snatch, clean and jerk, the variations, and squatting. Okay, and it's just getting like a total picture of it. Well, when you tell me that you want to be a national champion or be top 10 in the U.S. or whatever, and you have 8 training sessions a week, and I look in the book, and because I'm not here for every session, it's impossible. And I see that you have 5 days of blank data, you just lost a week of training.
Yeah.
In your year cycle. You're like, oh, well, it's so far out. This time matters. Because, and this is the with your Scott Van Pelt point, this is the time to grind.
Right.
You're hashtagging grinding.
And it's not sexy.
But you're not grinding. Right? You're not doing the things that you need to do.
Right. And it's like, and then the question arises, well, what do I need to do to get better? Or I want to be so-and-so, or I want to be top whatever. It's like, you're not doing the simple things. You're not, hitting those simple checkpoints, but you keep saying, what do I need to do? What can you do for me to help me?
And you can have this, like you and I, we can relate to this, where you're having the conversation about the athletes, like not recognizing that maybe they're in their own way, right? Like you keep asking what else you can do when you're not doing the things I've already told you you need to do, right? And so then it's like, oh, I must need a new program. So you sit down on Sunday night when you could be relaxing with your kids, watching Netflix, hanging out on the deck, drinking a beer, just having time away.
Doing something else.
And you spend an hour and 15 minutes putting in every detail to a 2-a-day training session plan, monitoring volume. Does this fit? Does that fit? And you want it to be precise, and you give it to the person. And then the first 4 days of the program, they train once. Right? And now nothing pisses the coach off more than that, because you just took time away from everything you do, because our goal is to support and make the athletes the best. They don't hold up that end of the bargain. So what we're doing is we're trying to create a structure and a system that gets them in the mentality to hold up their end of the bargain. Right.
And I mean, that's a different program. If you're talking like, you know, like we write you 10 sessions, you say, well, I can only make 5. That's not bad. That's not you doing less.
Correct.
That's not trying to be like, well, you suck. I mean, that's not bringing you down. That's just saying, if you're only going to train 5 times a week and not 10 times a week, you just need a different program.
It changes things, right? So,
right. It's like, you know, like back to your point about Josh, he's like, I have 90 minutes, 5 days a week. I want to be a national champion. That's not something Right. So, like, I mean, that's like something that we can write.
Barna is a great example of that, because Barna actually has the time to train twice a day, and he was like, I don't feel like I function well on 2-a-day training. Here's what I'd like. I'd like to train 2 hours at a time, and I would only like to do 5 days of sessions. Okay? He was a national champion.
Right, that's something you can write.
Exactly. I was like, okay, and you better believe that he follows
it to a T.
Yeah, Israel's the same way, and Israel doesn't. He's a level 3. He's a young guy. He has restrictions because of his lifestyle. Like he supports a family. He works three jobs. He can only train 5 sessions a week. Mm-hmm. Right.
Like just a different goal.
It doesn't. There's a confusion that, like, if you see Paige, for example, she does 2-a-days. She is built in a volume, right? And her goal is to be on a world team, okay? And she's built that volume, but we're going on 3 years now, okay? She did not start out with 2-a-days. We built into that volume, okay? So people come in and they see, like, oh, well, I must need to do 2-a-days to be that good. No. She did 2 years of 4 sessions a week, just really consistently, and we ultimately ended up working in volume and, you know, maximizing that, right? Because, and that's the other thing, the confusion is the 2-a-day is not double volume.
It's just a different setup.
It's a different setup, and you're trying to get higher quality out of 2 sessions in a day.
Right. And like for her, like, I mean, that goal changed over time. Mm-hmm. Like you rewind back to Lift Lab's beginnings, like September 2014. Like, I mean, the goal was not to make a world team. Like the goal was to, you know, lift and like to learn the lifts. And, you know, she was pumped about a 75 kilo clean. Right. And like, that was the goal. Right. Was just to do it, kind of see where it goes. And then that goal evolves over time. Yeah. So you don't need to go, you know, right to that. You just need to take care of yourself, and you need to put in like those sessions and like that work.
Yeah, absolutely. And just know where you're at in the process. There's people that have achieved high levels of goals with 1 session a day, right? Like this happens this is probably more common than people train twice a day, right? But the difference maker is the people that can have the perspective and the mentality that they're going to just be really consistent with what they do, and not just in their training, but in their sleep, their nutrition, their recovery habits. So before you even come to a coach, you to like talk about your training program, ask yourself, am I drinking water? Like, it just the dumbest little things.
It's like the simple
am I eating what I need to eat? Am I sleeping every night? Am I getting off of Netflix? Am I stopping with, you know, scrolling through Instagram mindlessly? Am I controlling what I can control first? So you're not confused about where you are in the entire process.
Right. You know, like if you bring those, things to the coach and you say, I need more from my coach. You know, I had that talk with an athlete who's a master's athlete who's, you know, 65 years old. And I thought it was a great conversation because, he was taking care of everything he was taking care
Absolutely.
of, and like had it all nailed down, and is like has like life squared away. His self-esteem is not predicated on how many likes he has on Instagram, because he's not on Instagram, right? Doesn't give a shit about any of that. Comes to me and says, I need more from my coach.
Absolutely.
And I'm like,
it's
okay.
an honest conversation.
I'm like,
I'm not getting enough.
Like when I wasn't butthurt about it, right? He didn't sugarcoat it.
Into butthurt,
right? Yeah, I mean, like there was no butthurtness about it. He respects me because I'm 30, and even though I'm technically a millennial, he was like, these kids get so upset and they take everything so personally. And I'm like, well, I'll try not to, right? So I didn't take it personally. I just said, well, maybe I need to do a little more for him. And it was probably the most productive conversation of the day.
I agree. And I think, like, just to wrap it all up, bring it all home, I think like that's the take home message. Yeah. That's the important thing. Like, have the honest conversations and don't have your feelings be hurt because of honest conversations, right? It's not an insult. Like, if you need something from me, or maybe as a coach, I need something from you, or I feel like I'm not the right fit. Like, it all works together. But the take-home message is you have to start developing a mentality based on your habits and having honest conversations to see if your actions match your words.
Right. And, like, put people in the process.
That's it.
That is it.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Wrapped up.